listeners. Welcome back to another scintillating episode of the Magic Morning Wood. As always, I'm one of your hosts, Ron, and with me is
Clive Davis. Hey, Ron, is it true? Are we going to be scintillating this time?
we're always scintillating. I don't know about you, but I know I scintillate. Is it?
Yeah, well, I've been reading this book recently, actually. How to scintillate and impress people. So I'm keen to put some of it into action.
Was that Dale Carnegie's second book?
Third, I believe.
Oh, third one. Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Okay. Well, let's move right along to so what we're going to talk about today. So we're continuing our algorithm of reacting to movies, and we are reacting to. Was I reacting to Fighting with My Family?
Correct.
No.
Fighting with My Family. Yes.
Right. Fighting with My Family. So we're reacting to last time we did Fighting with My Family, the wrestling movie, and so as a result, this week we both also chose more wrestling movies. I guess, right?
We can't get enough of that wrestling.
Right. Yes. So more wrestling movies. So quite similar and in tone and theme with a couple of these. So my choice was the 2000 movie known as a Korean movie called The Foul King, also known as Banchi Kwang.
Right. Just for a bit of background here, the reason Ron's laughing is Ron finds the number 2000 hilarious, and he can barely get it out.
In the year 2000. Do you know that song?
I think I might know it. That was an interesting take on it. It sounded like the final countdown.
It was similar to that, yeah. So anyway, yes, it was the year 2000, and it was a Korean movie called The Foul King, or in Korean, I'm not pronouncing this correctly, but it's looks like Banchi Kwang.
Yeah, Banchi Kwang, although over at the Korean movie database, they have it as a soft G, Banshig Wang. I know.
Banchi Kwang. Okay. Yeah, I think they have different vowel sounds and things. So like usually when you're reading, like, for example, a person's name and you listen to them pronouncing the name at the same time, it usually sounds quite different than what you think the way it's written. So I think the way they pronounce their vowels is actually quite different than we do. So I'd like to study Korean at some point just to really see, like, so I can figure out how to pronounce these correctly, because I'm sure we're actually probably way off on that. But
well, the thing that encourages me about studying Korean is that compared to Japanese, it's only Hangul is like just 20 letters or something.
Yeah, it's really it's like, a lot easier. Yeah,
piece of piss to at least I can read it.
But when you look at it, it's like I can't even figure out where the character begins and ends, right? Yeah. So I guess knowing it. So,
but that part seems simple. Of course, it'd be nice to be able to read Korean, but then you wouldn't understand what the hell you're actually what it means. But it would be nice to be able to read it.
Yeah, but I'd like to take like at least a remedial course in Korean. Yeah, actually, we were just talking about this before we started recording off mic, and we were talking about how some people are just better at learning languages. So I'm wondering how Korean compares with Japanese in terms of its difficulty level of learning it. So, because I know I met a girl a few years ago who was living here, but she had lived in Korea for a few years and was completely fluent in Korean. It seemed like either she was one of those people that just picks up languages better, or Korean is just a lot easier language to learn, maybe. So I don't know. So
well, it depends as well, I think, where you're coming from. So I remember going to a Japanese language class for a while, and we had a Korean student, and she just flew past us because for her, it was only a matter of learning the vocabulary. The sentence structure is almost exactly the same
with the verb at the end.
Yeah, so if you're Japanese studying Korean or Korean studying Japanese, I think it's more or less just a matter of picking up the vocab. Whereas for us, we have to just totally rewire our brains
from beginning. Yeah. Right. Okay.
But I've always been a little bit curious to study a bit of Korean, and then I realized, fuck, I'm still struggling with Japanese. Why the hell would I want to saddle myself with another language?
Right.
But
Yes.
yeah, but no, it would be nice to at least just be able to read Hangul. My wife
Yeah.
sat down and studied Hangul once upon a time, and yeah, it didn't take her very long, like a week or something, and yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, at least to get correct pronunciation of these movie titles, I guess, or the actors' names. I feel bad for them. Not that anyone's listening to us
No,
from there
and
anyway. So
whenever I research and write about Korean movies as well, I go to both the Internet Movie Database and the Korean Movie Database, and yeah, there's often quite huge differences in how they've decided to spell people's names on the Korean Movie Database as opposed to the Internet Movie
right. Yeah. Yeah.
Database.
Yeah, because as I was saying, whenever when I'm listening to them speak Korean and then I'm watching the rev subtitles, of course I don't know which word matches up with which word unless it's the name, right? If they're just calling out someone's name and I see the name written in subtitles, it's usually I was like, how does what they're saying connect with that writing? Because it seems like it's completely different,
Yes.
right? So that's why I'm sure that it must not. We must be thinking about it wrong. So I think
Well,
that's the idea.
I noticed actually, a case in point, there was a point, every now and again when they use a English borrow word, like so. For instance, in this film, there's where someone definitely says they're saying headlock, and the
Headlock. Okay, yeah.
headlock doesn't quite. I hear the head bit, but then the lock goes off somewhere in another direction that isn't.
Yeah.
Anyway, just in case any of you were thinking we were going to be talking about films today, this is the Magic Monument Language Podcast.
Right. Anyway, yeah, okay. So, okay, thanks for steering us back on course. We're back onto the movie. Again, 2000, directed by 2000.
It's got him.
Directed by again Ji-woon Kim, I guess, and written by Dae-woon Kim. I don't know if there's any relation, and also Ji-woon Kim, and starring Song Kang-ho.
No, I don't think there's. If all the Kims were related, that would be a fucking big family.
Yeah, it'd be a very so. But these two could be related because they're working on the same. It could be brothers or something. You never know, right? Or siblings. As other sisters. I don't know if it's a man or a woman. So
just
anyway,
wait to take yourself out of that hole and continue.
Yeah, thanks. And it was Song Kang-ho, who is famous from most recently from Parasite, of course, right? So,
right, and he's in what's the new one? There's a new Korean film which is impressing people as well, isn't there? What's it called? The one about the black market in like selling children on the back, but it's not as dark as it sounds. Apparently, it's kind of like a bit of a black comedy.
Broker.
Yes, there we go.
A broker.
Yeah.
Okay, I haven't heard about this one, so
we'll talk a bit later about Song Kang-ho because
he was also the guy from. He's also the Sympathy for Mr. Vengeance guy too, right? So.
Was he? I can't remember. I haven't seen that for a long time. Probably. He was in most.
He was also in Sympathy for Mr. Vengeance. Yeah, that one. So,
right.
Yeah. So anyway, and starring him and host of other people, Park Sang-myung, etc., etc. Anyone else that's famous from this movie that you recognize? He's the only one that I recognize. So
there was the one guy because we'll talk about Song Kang-ho because Song Kang-ho is, I think, as well as just an overall fucking great actor, I think he's a master of comic timing. Physical
comedy and stuff. Yeah.
But the other guy in this who I always makes me laugh just to look at him, that he's got to is the there's the two guys who like help train, not the doctor.
The one that ends up being his team partner. Yeah. So
that's a Park Sang-myung. He always makes me laugh. I've seen him in films, and he's just got a great, I don't know, sourpuss look about him, right?
Okay.
And the daughter, Jang Jin-young, was also in. There was a Korean kind of. It was a movie called Sorum, and it got sold as a horror movie, and it was a very, very interesting film I need to go back and watch actually because it played out I think if you went into it expecting a horror film, you might get slightly wrong-footed. And I remember liking it, but you know, something we talked about this before. Sometimes when you're watching a film, you're like, yeah, I sense I need to see this again, and there's more to it. And that film has a lot of hardcore fans who think it's a minor masterpiece, actually. So I'd quite like to go back and watch Sorum again, and the
And
doctor is in it.
yeah, and you know, tragically, I guess you know that she died, right? So
Is that right?
at 35 from stomach cancer.
Jan
So
Jing Young.
yeah. She died
Oh,
in
really?
2009 from stomach cancer at the age of 35. So yeah, really tragic. She was quite good too.
I didn't know
So
that.
yeah.
But luckily for her, between the two times you said that her age went from 25 to 35. So how long did
I
she?
did say 35 the first time. I think you were just talking over me. So
Oh, okay. Mhm.
yeah, yeah,
Sorry
but
to undercut.
nice
Um,
to way to draw light of tragic
yes,
situations.
yes.
Yeah.
Well,
Anyway,
you're welcome.
so this was a fun movie. It's a more of a comedy and than a sport movie. It's sort of, as we talked about with Fighting with My Father, kind of generally
Family.
speaking, following the general sport movie formula.
Mm,
This one having a little bit of fun with the fact that he's sort of a weak, mild-mannered bank employee who gets basically bullied. No, not basically, literally bullied by his boss, who puts him in a headlock and dares him to try to get out of his headlock and stuff. And he's, boss is just a nightmare and yells at him for being. But he's
that's
in yeah
Song Young Chang is the
in the
asshole boss.
boss's defense, it sounds like he really is a terrible employee though. Like he's like the
Yeah, yeah.
worst salesman in the entire country or something. So
Well, we'll get to that as well. I mean, because for instance, you said you said how this kind of plays out in a way that these things often play out, but I I think it's a little different from that, and playing into that as well is yeah, like the fact our main protagonist underdog character isn't exactly totally sympathetic, really.
yeah,
He's
yeah.
kind of ineffectual and
Uh,
useless
uh.
and doesn't really get much better during the course of the film.
Well, he gets better at wrestling, I guess, right? But
Kind of, I suppose, but
yeah,
I get the feeling that he hasn't really. What I like about this film is I get the feeling that he hasn't really learned anything by this.
yeah,
He's still just
yeah. I guess
a
so.
bit of a dick
Yeah.
drifting through life.
Mm. Yeah.
Perfectly okay, but
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
it, you know.
yeah. Yeah, even his dad kind of hates him. Like his dad is like so like just contemptuous of this shit son. He's
Yeah,
just can't do anything
yeah,
right, and yeah, a lot of funny stuff with his dad. I think I thought so. There's a lot of really funny scenes, and yeah, as you mentioned, this guy's like a real master of physical comedy, especially like I mean, even if you don't know what they're talking about, even if you didn't have the subtitles, you could tell that you can kind of almost figure out what's going on based on the physicality through these scenes, which
yeah,
made it
yeah.
very relatable movie. Even if you don't really like wrestling or those types of things, it, sort of you can it was almost a non-verbal movie in terms of like you didn't need to know what they're saying. That it was less important than the physicality. And he's he did it quite well, right? Considering he had to go
Yeah.
from like this sort of mild mannered and kind of this like kind of skittery kind of like you kind of skitter away when the girl came
Oh,
to the door or something,
he's
right?
the best skitterer in the business. I've seen him in a few other movies as well, and he something about that. Yeah, he that kind of I don't know. I suppose you could compare it to like the Office style
Mm,
cringe comedy. I
yeah,
think
yeah,
he's nails that, right. Like he's so good at it.
yeah. And he kind of he does have a little bit of an arc physicality physically at least, right?
Mm,
That he by the end he ends up sort of being sort of a relatively confident wrestler, right? And so
mm.
yeah, but still yeah, I think still the other skittering place was when he the cringe comedy where he like confesses his love to his
Yes.
coworker. And she's like, huh, what are you talking about, are you drunk? And he just like pauses and he just like bolts the other way.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I've been a big fan of him. Well, since the first time I saw this film, actually, when it was new. But yeah, but he's just gone from strength to strength, and obviously he's done more dramatic roles, like his thing in Parasite and
Well, even in Parasite,
Taxi
he's sort
Driver.
of the kind of the schlub dad, and I mean, there was a lot of stuff he did that was really physical comedy. You can like
Yes,
I could
yeah.
see it in there, that he was, even though the movie was mostly kind of dramatic, there was a lot of comedy in it, right? Which
Oh,
came
absolutely,
through,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yeah.
So I can certainly understand why he's considered one of the finest kind of actors around, and I think certainly in Korea, I think he's a proper superstar and has been for a while as well, right?
Right.
But yeah, especially when Parasite came out, obviously, and crossed over, then everyone kind of realized
saw this guy, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Too bad he didn't get nominated for anything though. So, but anyway, so yeah, I mean, yes, as I said, it does follow the formula in terms of it being like an underdog who, gradually gets better. There's, training montages and those types of things, and then it ends up, finishing with the big championship battle against like the big wrestler. But it does, stray from that formula occasionally, especially with this sort of backstory with him in the bank. And then there was a whole other subplot which I was a little confused on, which was the friend at the bank, which is the boss was asking him to, I don't know, maybe I missed something, but it looked like the boss was getting his friend to do something illegal under the book, over like under the table or something, but then he refused, and then he was trying to get
Yeah, that was a little difficult to follow. And
yeah, I didn't know what was going on with that.
He had to undercut his friend as well to do that as well in some way,
right?
Steal some clients away from underneath him or something.
Oh, is that what it was? Okay, I thought it was that he was asking him to do something, off the books or something like that, and then it was like he was refusing, and
yeah,
and then he has this sort of tantrum in the middle of the where he slams the phone and stuff and storms out, and yeah, so I'm not that was kind of the weak part of the story for me, because it seemed like there was some interesting stuff going on there, but it was really like I couldn't figure out what was happening, so it kind of took me out a little bit. So
no, you're quite right. For whatever reason, I kind of chose to just overlook that. But yes, you are quite right. It is a little, if I was asked to explain exactly what was going on, I don't think I'm 100%.
Okay, so it wasn't just me then. I wasn't sure.
No. But we did sidestep the thing of that. So to begin with, so he's kind of this schlubby bank clerk who's shit at his job, but he's kind of slightly fascinated with old school wrestling, and this guy called Tiger Mask, who's the old dude, Jang Hong Seong, who ends up kind of training up, and through plot convolutions, they happen to need a bad guy wrestler, right? Who cheats. So that's like he's in, and he has things like he has like a fork to stick people with and powder to blow in their faces. And stuff like that.
He has this sort of like part of his costume, and his chest is like the circle part of his chest that sort of it's like a case that opens up, and he's got like all sorts of like objects in there that he can use to cheat with and stuff. Right? And so there's like a really, really great sort of so I actually started watching this with my daughter. My daughter actually got into it, so she wanted to watch the whole movie with me. So she came in about sort of maybe a third of the way through and stuff, and really got into it. And so I actually watched this with her. So but there's actually quite a lot of like gore in this movie, considering that it's just sort of a wrestling movie. And so a lot of times my daughter was like, "Oh my God," right? Like she was like really like shocked by like especially when they get to the final battle and they're outside of the ring and they're like smashing each other with on the tables and chairs and stuff. And then she was really like shocked by the fork stabbing scene where
that's a lot of blood, right?
His first sort of match, he's supposed to have this fake fork that's made out of wood that's painted to look real, and he stabs someone with it. He's supposed to stab with it, and of course it's not supposed to hurt that much because it's not actually metal. But then he takes the wrong one.
Yes.
I don't know why. I don't even know why there would be a real one in that case. It doesn't make any sense. But he takes the wrong one, and then you actually find out because his partner, the other funny guy, kind of like starts to eat his lunch, and then his fork falls apart as he's eating it. He's like, "Uh-oh!" And so then of course he stabs his wrestling opponent with the wrong fork, the real fork, and then there's like blood spurting out, and he like looks shocked, and then he just stabs him again. Like
Yeah.
first of all, he stabs him in the head, and
Yeah.
he's shocked that there's so much blood. He goes, and then he stabs him again in the back of the shoulder. And it was like my daughter was freaking out. She was like, ah!
It's a very good low key reveal as well when you find out that he's got the. And there's another really good one as well. Yeah, where yeah, basically a hammer lands on someone's head and knocks them out.
Oh.
It's like really low key.
Oh yeah. There's that guy they doing like work on the building with his hammer, and he's just sort of hammering, and then the guy who's supposed to be in the match, or they're supposed to be his partner in the match, is sort of coming out of some, I don't know, looks like a gym or something like that. And he's just sort of stretching and enjoying the sunshine, and you guys just hammering away, and then he looks at it and he goes, oh, it's just the handle of this hammer. What happened to the rest of it? He looks down and he's like flattened on the ground. Right, so
Yeah.
I'm sure that guy would have lots of money.
That stuff's done really well, I think, and yeah, I mean well, it seems as if you enjoyed this one, Ron.
Yeah, I thought it was great. Great fun. I mean, I've said this before, that I almost am never disappointed with a Korean movie. Like every Korean movie we've ever done on this podcast and that I've watched in my spare time, I don't think I've ever seen anything that Korea has produced that has disappointed me, or sort of, everything is quite good there. It's really shocking. At least their batting average for me is quite high. So good for them. So so I'm always up for watching another good Korean movie. So and definitely I'd like to see more of Song Kang-ho Song. Right, I guess.
Yeah. He's always he is one of those actors as well who, if I find out, if I'm thinking about watching something and then I find out he's in it, it's like that definitely, puts it up.
Puts it up there, yeah.
The list is like, oh, he's
right.
Okay, that's at least he's in it. So how hard can it be? At least his scenes are going to be good.
And then I guess I don't know. I guess to stray from the formula a little bit, I guess in the final battle, he's supposed to battle this sort of a really big popular wrestler called Yubi-Ho. And then I guess it's fixed to the. Sorry.
Spoilers. I was just giving a spoiler alert.
Is it spoiler? Okay, yeah. Okay.
Well, just in case, you never know.
And he is supposed to lose, because he's sort of like Yubi-Ho is he's the Hulk Hogan or whatever. He's like the he's the good guy, right? And I guess he's the heel. I guess that's the term.
Yeah, heel wrestler.
Guy, right? So he's the heel wrestler, and so by cheating and stuff like that. But then it ends up getting a lot more brutal than you would expect it to be. Like it seems like they're really like beating the shit out of each other, like more than an average wrestling movie. Like I don't know. So it seemed like it started to get personal. Was that just me?
No, absolutely. Yeah. And also I was looking at, there's a few scenes in it. There's like a couple of slow-mo scenes where Song Kang-ho's character goes flying up in the air and then slamming down on, and it does seem to be him. I don't see how that could have been doubling, at least in some of these. Like his face is clearly visible, so
yeah.
He did properly kind of beat himself up a bit, I think, for the role.
Well, I mean, like, I mean, between the two characters, in him and Yubi-Ho, it seemed like it got like really, like it wasn't just like a entertainment match anymore.
No.
I think that's
spoiling, doesn't it? Yeah.
They really started to beat the shit out of each other, like for real. Right. I think, right. So by the end, and then it was unclear. Like he was supposed to lose after like the second power slam or whatever the special move is, but then it wasn't really clear about which move he was supposed to lose on, but it seemed that he wasn't actually doing what he was supposed to do. Was that
no, because he got his blood up, right?
Yeah, and so then
that's what I like.
It wasn't. Sorry. Yeah.
No, what I was gonna like. What I like about it is the fact that he doesn't like mature or learn any lessons.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
But usually with a movie like this, when you've got like, this guy has been told he has to lose, and he's supposed to take the fall. Usually there's at least a cutaway where there's someone sitting in the stands going like, what the fuck is he doing? He's supposed to be, but there was no, that didn't happen in
film in this podcast for that. exactly.
Yeah, exactly,
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
So, but in this one, there was no cutaway for that. I was like, well, wait, was that the movie he was supposed to lose on, or like, because I couldn't really tell if he was not doing what he was, because that scene wasn't there, which is so
Right.
standard. So again, breaking that convention, I guess, a little bit. And then I was unclear who did he actually lose at the end, or did he win? Because
I think
I don't know what happened at the end. So that was the
he
other kind of
lost,
head
I
scratcher.
think.
After
I
all
think he
that, you're not
technically
really
lost.
sure what happened at the end. So did he lose?
I think he technically lost,
Okay.
but I don't think it really matters, right? Because
Okay.
it's because and then the great final undercutting, of course, is just when you think you're going to get the audience rousing, crowd pleasing scene when he beats up his boss. He fucks that up and freeze frame, right? It's like it's great.
Yeah. So finally, it ends up with finally he goes for the rematch with his boss, and then he just slips in the snow and falls his face in the end, right?
I really appreciate that they kind of because it still is a satisfying crowd pleasing film, but in a very different
Yeah,
way,
I guess. Yeah,
right?
yeah. It does subvert the kind of the conventions a little bit.
Yeah, I really like the soundtrack to this film is pretty good as well. Some really interesting things. There's like that. There's that one when he's being chased through the streets by thugs, and it's just some like guy thumping on a piano, like.
Oh, I didn't clock that. I'll have to go back and watch it again.
Nice piece of. I don't know if there's a soundtrack, but I would buy the Feral King soundtrack because there's a few interesting bits and pieces on there.
Right,
No,
right.
I really enjoyed this film. I watching it for the second time. It was it was still good, and this time it struck me a little bit. It was a little bit more slow moving than I remembered it being. But it's quite absorbing, and like you said, your daughter, who obviously is quite young, it worked on her as well, right? So
Yeah, so
tend to have a less of a what's the thing I'm looking for? Attention span.
attention span. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So
But obviously she got caught up in it as
yeah,
well.
she was yeah. So much that she like had to go to bed, and so I had to stop and we finished it the next day because she wanted to watch it with me. So yeah, so
Cool.
it was so thumbs up for my daughter as well. So my 9-year-old daughter.
Nice.
So,
Yeah.
okay. So
Okay.
that's all I have to say about Falk King. Anything else you want to mention?
No, just Kim Ji-won. This was his second feature. He made a film called The Quiet Family, which also had Song Kang-ho in it, and the daughter of the Quiet Family has a cameo appearance in this film. If you remember the street gang, there's like there's one girl who hangs out to them, right?
Right.
Ko Ho Kyung, I think she was in
Right.
The Quiet Family, so like a little cameo appearance from her. And then Kim Ji-won made a short film after this called Coming Out, which is quite a fun little like a vampire comedy. And then of course he did a segment for some anthology film, and then after that of course was his kind of big film that got a lot of attention, which we've talked about before, A Tale of
Two Sisters, right?
Yeah,
right.
And so it's another interesting Kim Ji-won film, right?
Right. So this was kind of precursor to that one, right? So
yeah, I suppose his things are always, I've seen most of his films and they're all pretty interesting. I suppose the one misstep he made, as is often the case, was his big Hollywood film, right? If you remember that Arnold Schwarzenegger film, The Last Stand, that was
I don't think I even saw that one. Yeah. So
yeah, that was Kim Ji-won. That was like his Hollywood break. So it'll be interesting to see. I don't know. So for instance, with Bong Joon-ho of Parasite fame, obviously the world is his oyster now.
Right.
So I'm wondering if he's gonna go. Well, I suppose he already tried his Hollywood film, was Okja, right? Which I didn't particularly like.
Right.
So it is an interesting phenomenon where the foreign.
You're talking about Song Kang-ho?
No, well, was he in that as well? I can't remember now. He probably was.
No, he wasn't. His big Hollywood one, I guess, was or not, was it not Hollywood? Yeah, well, he was in the Snowpiercer.
Yes, that's right. Yes, which I suppose you could also, kind of, that was the stepping stone for Bong between
Yeah, it had a
and Okja, right? And then
right, yeah.
yeah.
So and that at least had a Korean director, but like all American, like a Western cast, right? So
Yeah,
and
apart
also
from Song Kang Ho and the girl playing his daughter, right? And
right.
which I remember Snowpiercer. I remember going to see it in the theater, and I remember enjoying it, but not quite understanding why the train has to go round and round. Like that bit of the story didn't make sense to me. Like you could just
Oh,
stop.
because if it stops, it freezes.
Ah, is that right? Yeah, it's bad science fiction, but I quite enjoyed
Well,
it.
yeah, it's I mean, there was another movie I was just watching just recently. So totally a little bit off topic, but
Go for it.
I'm finishing my Oscar watch, and I was watching a movie called All That Breathes, which is
Okay.
like a Indian, I think Indian or Pakistani documentary about these two brothers who were kind of saving kites, the bird kites.
Oh, okay, right.
Yeah, so yeah, in their kind of war torn area,
Mm,
and anyway, so they're actually having a conversation about science fiction movies. And
mm.
at one point, among it goes, actually, there's usually terrible science in science fiction movies, right? So, which
Absolutely,
is
yeah.
almost always true, right? So, I mean, so yeah, that's why it's fiction, right?
But have you? Yeah, but yeah. Anyway, we'll an argument for another time. Have you ever actually? What I haven't watched, and I'm tempted when I have the time. Have you ever watched any of the Snowpiercer TV series?
Yes, yeah, my wife and I watched all of it. I think I don't know if it's come out, but it's I found it kind of a slog to watch. It was not my cup of tea. My
Okay.
wife was kind of more into it than I was, but um I found it just not that good. Yeah.
Did
So,
you
but
did you
it
like the
was
film, the original film?
I like the film better than
Okay.
the show. Yeah. So I found the show yeah, it was a bit of a stretch for me, I think, whatever. So I mean, I don't mind the artifice and the kind of the premise idea, but yeah, the TV show was
Okay.
lacked something for me. So, but
Jennifer Connelly's in it, right? If I remember.
yes, so that was the only thing it had going for it. So,
Okay.
so
Okay.
yeah.
You know what, Mr. Lawler? I've heard all these things you've been saying about me on television. You want to wrestle me? You want to wrestle me, Memphis style? All right, fine. I'm not afraid of you, Mr. Lawler, because let me tell you something. True, I only wrestle women, but I've wrestled women that are a lot bigger and stronger than you. Matter of fact, they're probably smarter than you because you don't have any brains. You're from Memphis, Tennessee. All you do is plow the fields and farm and the farmer. Is that how you talk in Memphis, Tennessee, Mr. Lawler? Boo. See, Mr. Lawler, you don't have any brains. I'm from Hollywood. I have the brains. That's how I win my matches. I say the bigger they come, the harder they fall. You might be twice as big as me, but I've wrestled women that are twice as big as me, and I've mopped the floor with them. And that's what I'm going to do with you, Mr. Lawler. You challenged me to a wrestling match. I think you bit off a little more than you can chew. I'm going to wipe the floor with you, Mr. Lawler. I'll give you a little sample. This is what's going to happen when you and I wrestle each other in Memphis. Come here. What's your name?
Susan,
How tall are you, Susan?
6 foot,
And how much do you weigh?
327.
327 pounds. That's a lot more than you weigh, Lawler. Okay? Watch this. Let's go. Come on, baby! That's what's just gonna happen to you, Lawler! See? Come on, baby! Come on!
Andy, I think you really hurt her.
Doesn't matter. She doesn't have any money. She's poor. She can't sue me. See, I can do anything I want.
Put the camera
Come
off.
on.
Shut this camera.
Come on, baby. Wrestle.
So we're back on the mat for my response, which was the 1981 film All the Marbles, aka the California Dolls, a film you'd seen before, Ron?
No.
Okay. Last film directed by the great Robert Aldrich, who died in 1983. famous for well, all sorts of The Dirty Dozen, Whatever Happened to Baby Jane, Kiss Me Deadly, and I suppose in relation to this, in terms of underdog sporting films, he also directed The Longest Yard, right, with Burt Reynolds. So, yes, so this is simplicity itself, really. Peter Falk, the always thoroughly enjoyable. I love Peter. So,
being the most Peter Falkus.
oh man,
The most Peter Falk could possibly be.
he's got to be ad-libbing through a lot of this, right? And some of his things are there's like a brilliant bit when he's talking about Robert Redford having no interest in food apart from the occasional sardine. That's got to be straight out of Peter Falk's head, right? I can't imagine that within the script. But yeah, so he's a manager for a tag team wrestling duo, female wrestling duo, as played by Vicky Frederick, who I guess was later in Body Rock with Lorenzo Lamas, and Laureen London, star of Hundra and other films. And yeah, they're basically kind of traveling around the Midwest, a very kind of seedy circuit, right? They don't have much money. They're going around in a clapped out old car. They can't afford like any luxuries, and they stay in shitty motels and eat shitty junk food, and are always pinching cigarettes off each other and bickering and the like, and dreaming of a better life. And yes, eventually they do have their shot at the big time by taking on their old rivals, the Toledo Tigers, at the MGM Grand in Reno, right? Which is the kind of big, long set piece ending, guaranteed to get you cheering and on your feet. And, you know, it's that kind of, and this very much more, you know, if the Foul King was subverting anything, that's not this film's business. This film's business is to deliver good old-fashioned crowd-pleasing antics, right? And before then, it's a bit of a kind of, yeah, it's just a rambling kind of character study. Well, a little here and there, but
I would say that it did subvert it a little bit more in that it was less about the wrestling than it was about the relationships, you know. So I think that's, so I find that, you know, usually when it follows the formula, it's about, you know, they've got the goal, they want to win the championship or the title or whatever it is, and then they, you know, they get there, right? And usually there's relationships along the way, but it's always sort of secondary to the main sports goal. Whereas this one, I almost didn't care if they won at the end. Right. It was really about, well, I don't want to say that, maybe not that, but maybe that's going too far. But it wasn't really about that. Like, it wasn't like, if they didn't even have a final bout, I don't think it would have felt finished. Like, I don't think it would have felt like sort of unfinished. It was really just about them being together and about like the relationships together. Which I thought, it was more focused on that. So I thought it was, yeah. I don't know. Yeah, I'm probably waffling a little bit, but I don't think I'm explaining myself well. But I don't think, it's not that I didn't want the final battle and I didn't want them to win, but it wasn't about that for me. Like, it was more about them with each other. So
I get what you're saying. Yeah. However, I have to say, and this is like my third time watching this film.
Okay.
Every single time, I'm fist pumping the air at the end. That last thing really works for me, and I'm a little bit
when the two of them jump over they do the double, whatever it's called, the
sunset flip. The sunset
flip. Okay, right.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. When you're down to the last minute, right? It's just,
yeah.
But the whole thing is so well orchestrated up until that point, I think, and the character thing is part of that, right? For me, I really did want to see them win, and when they yes. Well,
sorry, I don't want to say that I didn't want to see them win. Of course, you do want to see them win, but
right,
it was just, I found more. I was more invested in the drama, or at least in the sort of like the relationships, than it was in their sports school in this movie.
I think what it is, I think what it might be is that the joys in the film doesn't come through the narrative arc. It's from the performances and the characters, isn't it? Right. So for instance, that bit at the end wouldn't be as good if you didn't have little cutaways to Peter Falk going like, "You want to brawl? You want to brawl? We'll give you a massacre." You know,
there's so many like during the wrestling matches. There's so many like obviously ad-libbed lines from all of the actors and actresses, and that are just kind of like overlaid on the audio track, and you're just like, hey, come on, blah, blah, blah. Hey, you want me to punch you in the nose? Like this, so like
you monkey, you monkey,
monkey part,
And when he comes back, how long have you been dead? How long have you been dead? Is another one.
Like you can tell that they were obviously saying these lines in a studio somewhere, and they've just said, okay, just like, you're angry, give us a whole bunch of lines, you know, like what is I can't remember. There's like an acronym that they use for this sort of like overdubbing. ADR, yeah. So right. They're just doing ADR, where they're just like, okay, give us a whole bunch of lines, and they're probably just, 2 hours in, they're probably just going crazy. Oh, okay, a monkey, monkey. Oh, that's great, and then they just sounded so awkward sometimes. But
oddly enough, I did a very similar job the other day for some new animated TV series, and they wanted a crowd watching a wrestling or a boxing match or something. So I did this just recently the other day.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Did you call someone a monkey?
I didn't. No, I didn't think about that. I should have done. So it's Peter Falk, Vicky Frederick, Lauren London, and you also got Burt Young. Always a pleasure to see Burt Young as well. I love Burt Young. Richard Jekyll turns up as the kind of crooked the referee, right, during the last match, who gets beat. And that's another thing as well, when they start beating up the referee. Like, I don't know why I am such a sucker for this film. Like, I can feel me being manipulated. But I go, and Robert Aldrich was a master at this, because The Longest Yard as well, that's another perfect example. I'm not probably the demographic they were going for as a sporting underdog, especially a fucking American football. Like a sport I couldn't give a shit about, But The Longest Yard as well is another classic of this genre. Robert Aldrich knows how to deliver this stuff, right? And I would be lying if I didn't say that. Big smile on my face every single time this film ends that I've seen it. I just I love it a bit. It's very difficult for me to be objective, but I mean, how did you get on with All the Marbles? Did you enjoy it?
It's the same. I thought it was as I said, I was kind of invested in the relationship and what was going on. I liked a lot of, like, there's a lot of, as you said, Peter Falk, and there's a lot of like the witty dialogue, and kind of the banter was always fun to watch and stuff like that. So I think in general,
if you ever need a friend, buy a dog. That's a good one.
Yeah, there's lots of good stuff, but I don't know. I generally I'd say I enjoyed the movie. I got along well with it. There's a couple things I would have I think I didn't get along as well as you did. I think it was a tad too long. I think this one.
It is
this
a bit.
One I felt.
It is a bit.
Yeah, I think it really just kind of dragged. It started to drag. It was a little bit
close to 2 hours.
That last like, it was a 30-minute like wrestling match. I was like, I was like, and it was like full on, like it was just like in real time. Like, so I was often during that. I mean, I like watching wrestling as much as the next person and whatever, but there was a couple points where I was like, well, they really definitely could have made this wrestling match a little. They could have tightened it up. But I thought it was a little.
I mean, I agree with you. Overall, it runs a little bit too long, but I don't know if I would touch that final just because it works so well for me. I mean, I wouldn't want to tinker.
I found myself wishing that they'd tightened up the wrestling match because it was a little bit too back and forth. I mean, I wasn't really interested in watching if I wanted to watch a wrestling match, I just watch wrestling, right? So I wanted to see a movie about these people doing wrestling. So and then I mean, of course, I'm going at this from a 2023 standpoint, but it started to have some issues when we got into like them hitting each other. I started to, so when he starts like slapping her around and stuff, and then like oh, why, in that there's one scene where she goes out basically
Oh
to
yes, yes.
have sex with the
Bridget and
promoter to
Starker.
get them,
Yeah.
and so and then she goes out and basically seduces the promoter to get them the spot, and then he comes back and he slaps her and stuff, and then he hits him back, and why did you hit her? And it was just that felt really dated for me, and it was a little hard to
There are a few things like that.
the whole area. Yeah. So
For example, another thing as well that wouldn't fly now would be to have your two main extremely white characters take down
like the
minority two black
yes,
wrestling
that
tag
didn't
team.
fly too well. Yeah. Other also.
I mean, I don't think it's problematic in the film, to be honest with you. I genuinely think that wasn't coming from a dark place or anything, but it's just interesting how the goal, that would be notable now, right? Like if you were to
now, I think so.
You'd be sending a message. It would be like this film was presented by the Proud Boys or something like that. You know what I mean?
This is produced by Donald Trump.
Yeah, exactly. So, but I don't think I don't think this film has that agenda. But if you saw this, if this was a new film, then it would cause questions to be asked, right? Here's a question for you. Did you recognize there's one scene where Peter Falk has a cute topless girl in his room? Did you recognize her?
I didn't. No.
Okay,
I remember the time.
You'd either know, because we're from more or less the same kind of demographic. We would have been horny teenage boys around the same.
Right. Okay. Time. Where is she from?
Well, I'm guessing your points of reference, if you've seen her, you either would have known her from if you remember the film Hots. She was Boom Boom Bangs, the one who does the topless parachuting.
Okay, Hots. I don't know Hots.
You remember Hots?
No.
Oh, okay.
Hots.
Or Bachelor Party.
Okay, Tom Hanks.
Yeah, the first scene in the film where, because his job is like taking photographs or something like.
Okay, I haven't seen that movie since like the 80s.
No, but it doesn't matter, because if you'd have seen it as a teenage boy, you would have always remembered the.
I don't think I did, and it didn't stick
okay.
So, yeah.
The woman with the cleavage at the beginning. Obviously, that was what she was famous for, right?
Okay, right.
But yeah, that's Angela Ames.
Angela Ames. Okay, yeah. So yeah, I think I wasn't as familiar with the other things with her. So, but yeah, she was very cute though. Actually, all the girls were quite cute in this movie, and it was also the other thing that was a bit of a stretch for me was, I mean, I guess when they live and kind of like live in this car together and they have this sort of witty banter, I guess stuff that kind of like you kind of grow on each other, but I never really thought that she would hook up with Peter Falk. So,
right, yeah, a little bit, and I suppose to be fair, they do a pretty good job. I mean, it must be fairly formidable to try and keep up with Peter Falk, right?
Yeah, I guess, yeah.
And they
do it though, yeah. So
they hold their own.
I thought all the actors were quite good. I thought they held their own. I was like, oh, this could get really like irritating or obnoxious. But yeah, right. the banter was quite spot on. So I thought they did quite well with that. And the three of them had that's why I think maybe I was more, as I said, I was more invested in them together as a relationship than necessarily them as in their wrestling career or whatever. I also didn't really understand why they were just driving around doing this. Like, why didn't they just go home, book something, and then go there? Rather than why are they just driving around waiting to have a job? So
I got the feeling he was just rolling into town and trying to get jobs on the hoof.
Yeah, I guess, yeah. But, I would have liked to have seen and I guess Robert Aldrich was planning a sequel to this movie apparently when he died.
Yeah. Well, yes. So this is one of the great what ifs for me so there's even a scene in the film, right, where Clive Kusatsu plays this manager of a Japanese tag team, and he says, "Oh, why don't you come to Japan? Because Japan is very female wrestler friendly.
Mm.
Joshi Pro, it's called here, right? They love female pro. There's lots of female pro wrestling stars, you know. And yeah, so apparently, even after he died, his son William Aldrich, who was the producer on this film, even he was trying to set up a sequel because he died as well. But yeah, they were trying to get the sequel off the ground. Yeah, where they would have come, the California Dolls
Gone to Japan. Right.
That just strikes me as just what a miss.
What a shame.
I would love to have seen that film.
Yeah.
That would
what I was would like to see is, I think, was because I was sort of interested in their relationship and kind of their dynamic. I would have liked to have seen almost like, I guess, I mean, I don't think they did that at this time, but almost a prequel. Like, how did these three ever get together in the first place? You know what I mean? So like, I'd love to, like, I didn't really, I found it much of it like a mystery. Like, how did these two women meet, and how did they get into wrestling, and how did they meet Peter Falk, and how did he convince them to go on the road with him and live in shitty hotels and fight over candy bars and cigarettes in order to like why would they agree to this life? You know what I mean? Like, it's I was really interested as to how they got there, right? So, but I guess
no. I mean, if anyone wants to do a All the Marbles prequel
or
then
a requel, they need to reboot it. A reboot prequel, yeah. So
I mean, who knows? I mean, you never know in this day and age. I mean, it's entirely possible that someone could do if the script is good, probably needs a bit of a polish, but certainly California Dolls come to Japan. I mean, you've sold one movie ticket, definitely.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, sadly, Peter Falk.
But I guess that
to fill though, right? Like, who would you?
That sort of has been done before. Wasn't that what was that movie, Mr. Baseball? Isn't that the one where Tom Selleck or something comes to Japan?
Yeah. And maybe one of the major
coming to Japan to be a wrestler.
One of the major league films.
Major League, yeah, did that. So
go to Japan.
Coming to Japan to be.
Well, and of course, isn't there? Wasn't the Bad News Bears? Didn't the Bad News Bears go to Japan or something? Or
was that part 2? They in Japan?
Yeah, I seem to vaguely remember something like that.
So yeah, that was a thing, I guess, back in the day where people
I
coming.
suppose those two sports, baseball and wrestling, have such a huge following in Japan, right?
Right.
I suppose that's where you would go, right?
Right. Yeah, I guess. Yeah. So, but anyway, so maybe it'll come back again. But yeah, I thought it was a interesting film. I thought it was good. I didn't like it as much as I liked Falcon King, I think.
Okay. I'm the other way. I like both a great deal, but something about All the Marbles just gets under my skin, and I love it.
But I did like it. I mean, it did follow the formula, and you do get the fist bump at the end. Fist pump, not fist bump, fist pump at the end. But and I liked the relationship. I liked that it was a little bit off, but I would have trimmed it a little bit here and there, and my modern sensibilities, I found it difficult to root for a guy who's basically like a wife abuser. So it was, but it was, but I mean, that's neither here nor there. So but I did enjoy a lot of the movie. So
a fine double bill as well, I think.
Yes.
Others should follow.
As I was watching All the Marbles, I had seen Falcon King first. And I found that I was like, oh well, that's exactly the same as the other movie. That's exactly the same. So a lot of beats were kind of mirrored in both these movies. So,
but certainly a rewarding double bill and a fun night in, I think, with films. Right. So yes. So I guess next time we shall be reacting to All the Marbles.
All the Marbles, right?
So until then, me and Ron coincidentally are now off. On Saturdays, you probably don't know this, after we record the show, we actually go and play marbles, which is our favorite sport, and we're writing a script all about, an underdog marble story where we,
Right, I get your what do they call the tiger eye? Is that no? So I'm the newcomer to. Yeah, I don't know.
Dogs is prey in the night.
Oh, it just rates itself, where I'm the underdog. I've never played marbles before, and Clive's the sassy Peter Falk kind of.
That's right.
jaded marble player, and he's going to teach me the ways, and then I'm going to rise through the ranks of the
Let me tell
marble
you about
leagues.
Channing Tatum. No interest in food at all. Just the occasional sardine.